I thought that was a really good case.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, in your part of California, how many sightings a year do you think there is?
We get a lot. We get like, I think 700-800 or something the last year. I mean, we're busy. My field investigators here are always on the move because the sighting reports keep coming in. I mean, I knocked off like 10 cases last weekend, I was feeling real, proud of myself. It's like, I had like one unknown and then 9, IFOs that were, somebody saw like a firefighting helicopter. They mentioned it looked like a flying crane, and it's like, well, yeah, we have sky cranes, and they have lights on the bottom that move the same way this person described it. It was like, yeah, that's a sky crane, and it was during the wildfires that we were having. But then I'll get a report like this, where, it's this object that really, I have a friend that lives out in the Camarillo area that saw something very similar. He's the gentleman that actually owns the studio who he played bass and produced the song Seventh Sister that you like to play during your breaks. And he had a sighting where he was. It was going from, it was going from east to west. He has a ranch out in the farming area of Camarillo area in Ventura County. And he went out and was using nature's bathroom. That's what we do. His recording studio is built into his barn. So, I recorded Seventh Sister in the barn there. And we were talking, and interestingly enough, his father was one of the Top Gun pilots that was sent after the Lubbock Lights back in the late 1950s. And he was given medals for engaging UFOs. And he couldn't tell his family what his medals were for until he was on his deathbed. But anyway, my friend Eric, who lives out there in Camarillo, in the farmlands there, he was between songs during a recording session, and he was outside using nature's bathroom. And he looks up, and he sees this perfectly dark, flat black disc. It had a couple of lights in front of it. They were red lights. They didn't blink. They were just red lights. And this thing flew right over him, completely silent. And it was round. You could tell, it blocked out the stars, and you can see the stars from where he lives. I can attest to that. Well, he starts yelling and screaming, and his wife and the drummer that you hear on the track that you play of mine, they all went outside, and they saw it too. They saw it in the distance, this black disc. It was heading out towards Port Hueneme, which is where they have the CB base out there, the Navy CB base. Anyway, it was like this perfect sighting of a black disc, no markings on it whatsoever, just the 3 red running lights in front. Whether, maybe it's ours or maybe it was alien in origin, I don't know. But people see these things, and the black discs, people see those. We had one report that was over Burbank, California, a couple of years ago that was the exact same description. And I think that Richard Doty, and I don't always listen to Richard, we know that he worked with the CIA and that he's been used as a disinformation agent on occasion. But he says that when he was stationed at Area 51, that he was asked to guard this flat black disc. It was like 35, 40 feet across that was hovering over the tarmac. So maybe it's one of ours. I don't know. But this guy in Monrovia saw one, from the case that I just read to you. And I have a few reports that are very similar. They're all from people that have no connection with each other. Most of them have no interest in UFOs. That's the other thing. The best cases I get are from people that don't watch Ancient Aliens or don't care about UFOs, but they see something inexplicable, and it changes their viewpoint. The world is, it's sort of like the tablecloth is pulled out from under them.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, there you go. So
you're so on that. Again, I things like Ancient Aliens and some of these other shows that have come and gone through the years. Do you think that kind of gets some people to imagine that they're seeing UFOs?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I get lots of drones that people report. People report, like, blimps that have the readout on the side, advertising stuff. 90% of the time it's a prosaic object. And, I tend to get reports, and the newest stuff that we've been getting is the, Elon Musk's SpaceX satellite train that they sent up. I think it was November 18th. And we had 6 different reports in Los Angeles. I know that Phoenix MUFON had 18 reports. People saw it from Florida to California, and it was an IFO, but it was something new in the sky. And it's good to know that people are looking. People are looking, and you never denigrate anybody or I try to always be really sweet to people when they report an IFO, because it tells me that people are looking up and they're paying attention. And 10% of the time, people will report something that I simply can't explain and nobody else can explain, and those are the really interesting ones.
But
so it's like, look up. Look up.
That has a question I want to ask you: is how many people come to you and want answers that you can't give?
Everybody. People want to know what their experience meant, and I have to tell them that you have to look within yourself, and it probably won't come instantly. When I had my weird experience, and I've only had one experience where the wall, opened up and these things came through, and everything since then, I've had a couple of weird sightings I think are related to that. I think that it sort of engages us in some way to where it can appear to us and it teaches us things. But I think that you have to go within yourself and try to see what it means to you. And 9 times out of 10, people will find meaning in their sightings. It's not just, extraterrestrial hot rods that people are seeing, and it's not all just nuts and bolts. There's something about it's something about humanity. It's something to do with our consciousness, and I think that we're being tooled with in a way. I think that our skepticism is stronger than our acceptance of miracles. That our questions are bigger than our answers, and I think that is being switched around. If I think of what our visitors are trying to do, that I see more than anything else, that our baseline reality is being elevated and being changed. So, people need to keep looking up. And please, if you see something that you don't understand, go to MUFON.com and put in a sighting report. And we will look at that and we'll try to figure out what it was. And I'll be frank with you, 90% of the time it's going to be something that's prosaic and understandable, and it's human in origin or a natural thing. But 10% of the time, it's inexplicable. We don't know what it is, and it's probably our visitors, because they're here and they're actively engaging with humans for whatever reason. I mean, if they were trying to invade us, they're doing a terrible job of it. Because here we are doing the same thing we were doing 50, 60, 70 years ago, watching soap operas, arguing about politics, worrying about, whether the paycheck is going to come on time, and what have you. But, our baseline reality, I think, is being tooled with and changed. And I think that's important. I think that it has something to do with human evolution. And if there's anything benevolent about the visitations and abductions that are happening, that's what it is. That our baseline reality is being changed, and hopefully for the good of humanity.
Well, I think something is going on. One thing, I had a group of acquaintances back here 6 months ago that were so positive major disclosure was going to happen. They wrote books and did all this stuff, got on the radio, up and down every TV show on cable they could get onto, and said, major disclosures coming from the government, just any day now, within the next 30 days. Well, the only disclosure we saw was when the Navy came out and said there's unidentified objects. Now, that isn't to me that big smoking gun that these people were writing books about, getting on and saying, all these documents, this famous generals are going to come out of the closet and say UFOs exist. Well, it never happened. So I don't think it will ever, unless something
all
major
that information,
happens.
It's all there. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, disclosure happened. It happened when the Nimitz affair was on the front page of the New York Times. I mean, what else do people want? I mean, I don't think that the president is going to come out and announce it. I don't know that it would work well for him politically. I don't think it would work well for anybody politically.
Well, what happened. The president lately, was it Buzz James?
Yeah, Buzz Aldrin, when Trump was denying sightings and UFOs, he looked out at him and his eyes popped out of his head. And that's on video. You can actually look that up.
And he was actually talking to himself with his mouth opening. And he wasn't saying good things about Trump, because Trump said he didn't believe in UFOs and that they don't exist. And here you have all these, former astronauts standing there getting an award from the president, and then he's sitting there saying they don't exist. And
if you say they exist, you're saying that there's something that's more advanced than we are out there. And they don't want to say that. It's a scary thought. I mean, they can't say that they can protect us from them. I mean, I don't know that they can. I mean, we know that off of Big Sur back in the early 1960s, late 1950s, that there was a missile launch that they had on film where a flying saucer went and shot some kind of a light beam at it, and it disabled it. So, I mean, they keep telling us that, your nukes are no good. I mean, you can't harm us.
No,
the military doesn't want to admit that.
Yeah, you're so right. Now, our time, again, is for news. Do you want to hang on for about another 15 minutes after, not the news, but the news break for the radio stations for about another 15 minutes, or we can wrap it up now, whatever you want to do?
Sure, I don't mind. That's okay.
Okay, well, maybe you got one more great, more story after we come back in about 3 minutes. We got Earl Grey, we got James Krischbaum, you got me, Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio. We'll be back in 3 minutes.